St. Croix Foundation for Community Development was founded in 1990, 1 year after the devastation of Hurricane Hugo, by courageous community stalwarts and activists who came together to birth a radical idea. The vision of some of our community's most progressive minds, our founders had the ambitious goal of creating a grassroots philanthropy that could address the urgent social and economic challenges facing the territory as it began the arduous task of rebuilding after Hugo from the bottom up. Launched as a small, unendowed hybrid community foundation, born out of sheer necessity and conviction, they rooted the organization in some progressive core values. But what is a community foundation? Established definitions hold that a community foundation is a public charity that typically focuses on supporting a geographical area, primarily by facilitating and pooling donations used to address community needs and support local nonprofits. But back in 1990, our founders felt that in order to serve our battered community, they had to move beyond the colonial constructs of conventional community foundations. We needed more, and we deserved more. The final framework they settled on was undoubtedly more complex and challenging, yet brilliant. St. Croix Foundation would be part community foundation, part community development corp, part operating foundation, and part community activists. Our founders also determined that the foundation's format had to remain flexible and responsive in order to meet the needs of our isolated, colonized, marginalized, and predominantly Black community. All socio-political realities they confronted head-on at our inception. Determined to leverage philanthropy as a vehicle for community advancement and for people power building, they knew there were few options before them: spend precious time and effort fundraising, or mold their own model of a community-rooted foundation, ever inspired by the raw nobility and potential of philanthropy, to serve through the love of humankind. Their ultimate vision was to build a thriving Black community. One of the most noble commitments made at our inception, a commitment rarely ever made by community foundations: deprioritize endowment building in order to minimize competition with our critically important nonprofit sector for scarce donor dollars. Seeking to cultivate social capital, credibility, and community trust, they also committed to building nonprofit capacity by moving beyond grant making, serving as a fiscal sponsor, with the overarching aim of nurturing a strong and sturdy third sector in the absence of municipal government. The rationale for fiscal sponsorship and nonprofit incubation was simple: give or grant nonprofits a fish and feed them for a day. Teach them to fish and feed them for longevity. Most of you watching this video know in a very intimate way that the U.S. Virgin Islands sits on the front lines of every major economic and social vulnerability facing BIPOC communities on the mainland. From climate change and economic fragility to structural racial inequities, all magnified by our political status as a colonial possession. Yet despite all of these challenges, and despite sitting in a persistent blind spot for national philanthropy, we are proud to report that St. Croix Foundation continues to make manifest our founders' bold vision, boasting an impressive portfolio of national recognition in almost every programmatic area. In fact, today, St. Croix Foundation serves as a grantmaker, a fiscal sponsor, a community convener, and a program administrator. We also engage in advocacy, urban planning, and data collection. Our key programmatic priorities include nonprofit coalition building through our dynamic nonprofit consortium, child and family well-being through our Kids Count initiative, and holistic community development and placekeeping through our comprehensive Sunday Market Square revitalization project. Over the past 25 years, St. Croix Foundation has spearheaded some of the most comprehensive historic downtown revitalization efforts in the U.S. Virgin Islands. To date, As stewards of some of the most deeply historic properties in Sunday Market Square, the foundation has been the conduit of approximately $15 million of downtown revitalization investments into Christiansted Town and throughout all historic districts in the territory. The current phase of our restoration efforts entails the creation of a cultural arts corridor and community resilience hub that will include nonprofit co-working space, low-income housing, and the radical transformation of our blighted Alexander Theater into a state-of-the-art performing arts center and one of the island's largest community disaster shelters and safe rooms, slated for completion in 2026. Through a hazard mitigation grant from FEMA, which will partially fund the renovation and retrofit of the Alexander Theater, the foundation is currently in phase 1 of the long-awaited realization of our vision. While FEMA has committed funding for the majority of facility restoration costs, the scope of their funding is explicitly limited to the retrofits of the disaster response function of the theater only. As we continue to identify alternative funding sources to cover the performing arts specific costs and other Sunday Market Square capital development costs, we are deeply grateful for the investments that have been made by our partners at the Federal Home Loan Bank of New York and the Office of the Delegate to Congress, who stewarded a recent congressional allocation CDBG grant. As another critically important priority in our operational portfolio, St. Croix Foundation has rooted the foundation of our organization in deep linkage with nonprofits. With a disproportionately large number of under-resourced, low-capacity nonprofits operating in the Virgin Islands, all competing for the same scarce donor dollars, we continue to honor our founders' commitment to equity and their pledge to minimize competition for funding. Today, St. Croix Foundation is the preeminent fiscal sponsor in the Virgin Islands, having served as the fiscal umbrella for over 250 local nonprofits and community-based projects without 501c3 status. Moving beyond fiscal sponsorship, in 2016, St. Croix Foundation launched our nonprofit consortium through a series of table conversations with over 50 nonprofit leaders. With acute recognition that we can no longer program or grant our way out of the deeply rooted structural dysfunctions we are confronting, we conceived and launched our nonprofit consortium with the overarching goal of fortifying St. Croix's civic sector. Today, the consortium is a membership collective of roughly 30 social impact organizations serving St. Croix and the U.S. Virgin Islands, representing 4 distinct priority areas, including arts, culture and heritage, health and human services, education and youth development, and the natural and built environs. Over the span of 7 years, and through rich programming, nonprofit members have built genuine trust with one another, enabling our nonprofit consortium to serve as a dynamic space where creative, holistic, and out-of-the-box solutions for our community's most persistent challenges are being birthed. We have absolute confidence that our holistic approach to community development works. 10 years before 2017 Hurricane Maria, St. Croix Foundation solarized our office and buried surrounding utilities to support community resilience, as well as the foundation's operational sustainability. Thanks to this foresight, immediately following Maria, our headquarters became a critical communications hub for 30+ civic leaders and government responders. Sitting together for 3 months, our civic coalition surveyed 1,000 impacted residents, collected data about the status of nonprofits, and stood up St. Croix's long-term recovery group, which repaired 71 homes, more than the central government in the first 2 years after the hurricane. Together, we developed interconnected priorities and programming and launched our Community Resilience Hubs initiative, earning St. Croix Foundation the 2022 Housing and Urban Development Secretary's Award for Public-Private Partnerships. Through shared decision-making, leveraged resources, and systems thinking, every project conceived during that period of intimate collaboration nurtured greater community resilience while preserving our place and people's way of life. Those investments proved prophetic, affirming our approach to coalition building when the next unimaginable crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, hit. Our solarized community centers, which prioritize youth and seniors, kept these vulnerable populations safe yet connected throughout COVID. Our container farm stands, awarded to local farmers located in the most underserved neighborhoods, ensured isolated populations had access to healthy food and safe outdoor spaces. Our AmeriCorps Vista program enabled nonprofits to sustain operations as needs expanded and resources evaporated. Ultimately, our collectively conceived programs, grounded in data and relationships, became life-saving assets during the pandemic. In fulfillment of our mission to encourage greater philanthropic activity and to marshal resources for our community, coupled with our commitment to build nonprofit capacity, St. Croix Foundation continues to tirelessly advocate for greater national philanthropic investments in the Virgin Islands. While this exercise has been challenging, we are incredibly encouraged by the progress we have made thus far, evidenced by the growing network of partnerships and the exposure we have fostered for our community. For almost 2 decades, Kids Count has been an invaluable resource for our community, providing a broad assessment, a temperature check, on how our children and families here in the Virgin Islands are faring. Kids Count has also been an essential part of local policy development, as well as St. Croix Foundation's own program development. Launched by the Annie E. Casey Foundation in 1990, over the past 30 years, Kids Count has become one of the most comprehensive data repositories for many, if not most, state and city governments across the nation. To date, the Foundation has released 4 Kids Count publications in collaboration with local government data partners as we strive to support our community with developing more comprehensive data infrastructure, while also empowering stakeholders to develop data-aligned program and policy decisions that benefit children and families. Our 2023 Kids Count USVI data book, entitled A Call to Action, Sounding the Alarm on Child Well-Being in the U.S. Virgin Islands, was released in December of last year and highlighted the dire circumstances surrounding our children, from a 50% decrease in the child population in the U.S. Virgin Islands over a 20-year period, and alarmingly poor academic assessment scores. Looking to the future, our Kids Count team will continue to courageously amplify the voices of our children as we issue this call to action. Rest assured, while the sense of urgency mounts with each passing year, we remain optimistic and a little excited about the opportunity to rally our community, to build something new, and to finally move the needle on child well-being in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Reflecting on our comprehensive body of work, St. Croix Foundation is acutely aware that everyone doing deep social justice work at this epic moment in history is placing a lot on the line to safeguard the social contracts we steward for the voiceless and the vulnerable in our communities. Through all the priorities we are stewarding, from child well-being and community resilience and revitalization to nonprofit capacity building, we know change, real change, is electrified by cultivated, trust-based relationships that are rooted in place. And so we begin 2024 optimistic and convicted in our belief that people, fused in carefully and courageously cultivated relationships, can solve big problems together. As one of our national partners says, relationship is the resolution. We now believe relationship is the revolution. St. Croix, marginalized communities around the nation, and even the field of philanthropy needs a revolution. Please join us.